Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. 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 Good morning, everyone, or afternoon, or evening, as the case may be, for wherever you are. I'm so excited to be with you today and to start this new program from Tara Mandala called Lama Live. And so this is a program that I began really because of feeling, I think, how many of us feel, which is a little bit out of touch with each other, literally no touch. And I know we can't literally touch this way, but we can be more in touch than we have been able to be. So I'm saying I need to reload here. Uh-oh. It says, looks like your embedded link is invalid. Visit the chat settings and grab a new one. Okay. I don't see anything on that. I think I need my phone so I can talk to them. Looks like you're on. Okay. All right. So I guess everything's okay. It's always like that in the beginning, right? So, yeah. Welcome, everyone. There's some greetings coming in. Thank you. Yeah, if everyone can say where they're coming in from and maybe their first name, then we get a sense of who's here and where they are. That would be wonderful. And then I will be told, or I'll see that. So let's begin by raising Bodhicitta. That is the intention to practice together for the benefit of all beings. And we do this mudra for that. If you want to, it's one pointed dedication to the benefit of beings. Heartfelt generation. A bodhicitta, which is the mind toward enlightenment, or the mind of enlightenment, or the thought of bodhi, the thought of awakening. We generate this so that any of our actions can be expanded from a personal goal to a more universal intention. Thank you. I want to begin with the prayer requests. Some people sent in requests for prayers, so I will read those first, and then I'll lead you in some meditation. Julia Gu from London is praying for health and peace for all. Don Massey in Goroda, BC. Her son, Sashone, died suddenly yesterday, at the age of 45. Isabella Fraga dell'Andrea is making prayers for all the underrepresented, the underserved, and the silenced people around the world. First-line victims of white supremacist patriarchal regimes. There's a lot of people in that category. So as I read these prayers, what you can do is connect as well as you can and then send a blast of love and freedom and blessings to these people. Alain Delalande in France, brain and lung cancer. Bruno Wurst in Germany, health problems and surgery coming up. Françoise Gerard passed away recently in Belgium. And Ellen Topal in New York, sorrow, sadness. Those are the prayer requests that we have. So I'm seeing you all coming in from various places. Tara Ling in France, that's our Tara Mandala Center in France, and some other people in the United States and UK and so on. So those can be seen on the Facebook Live for all of you. So what I'd like to do today is a meditation on equanimity. Equanimity is one of the 4 immeasurables. In Tibetan, it's Semeshi. The 4 immeasurables are the active aspect of relative bodhicitta. And so we generate these intentions through the 4 immeasurables. And the equanimity is usually listed as last of the 4, but Patrul Rinpoche said it should be first, because if you don't have equanimity, the other 3 are tainted by lack of equanimity. So the 4 immeasurables are loving kindness, compassion, empathetic or sympathetic joy, and equanimity. They are ways of generating bodhicitta, essentially what we did in the beginning, but more specifically. Equanimity is something that we don't hear so much about. We hear about compassion, we hear about mindfulness, and so on, but we don't hear so much about meditations on equanimity. But it is actually very important. And the racism in the world, the homophobia, all those things are based on lack of equanimity. Equanimity means that you have an equal feeling toward everyone. You don't have preference, you don't have enemies and friends. You have an equal feeling toward everyone, an evenness. And that doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means that you hold them all with love and compassion. Not just your family. We're pretty good at having love for our family, our children and so on, our friends, but maybe not so good at others. So I thought I would do this in a more experiential way. And so I'll invite you to close your eyes to do this. And take a moment to just come to presence where you are, where you're sitting. And then what I'd like you to do is to choose someone among the beloveds in your life. It could be an animal, it could be a partner, a friend, whoever you really like, you really love, you feel close to, you want them to be near you. And imagine them, that person or that animal, on your right side. And feel what it feels like to have them next to you. That closeness, that relaxation. Sense of security, maybe, that you get from having them near you. Really notice that feeling. And see them very vividly next to you. And now take a moment, keeping that person there on your right side, and imagine on your left side your biggest enemy, or the person that you really don't want near you, or the person that you really don't like. And imagine them next to you. And notice how that feels. That aversion feeling of, I wish they would go away. I do not want them near me. Feel yourself inwardly pushing them away. And at the same time, hold the feeling of the beloved on the other side. And feel those two things simultaneously, the attraction and the aversion. And now in front of you, imagine someone who you have regular contact with in your life, but you don't really have any feelings about them. You don't really care about them. You don't know how they are, what's happening in their life, but you know them. So you have a kind of neutral feeling toward them. It could be somebody that you see, somebody at the bank or at your workplace you see regularly. Choose someone who you don't have any particular like or dislike for. It's a neutral feeling, but also a feeling of not really caring that much about them. Sort of, I don't have time to care about everybody, and this isn't one of the people I'm choosing to care about. And see them in front of you. And see them as vividly as you can. And notice that feeling of neutrality or not caring. This is someone you can ignore. And notice what that feeling is like. And then simultaneously hold the one you like, the one you don't like, and the one you don't care about at the same time. This is actually something that we are doing all the time. We're constantly thinking about the people we love, also thinking about the people that we don't love, that are irritating to us or in some way our enemy. And then all the people in the neutral category. We're operating in these dynamics all the time. So just feel that push and pull of the like, don't like, and also don't care. And now what I'd like you to do is release that beloved one, whoever you chose for that. Release them from the feeling of grasping and that you want them closer, and even it out into love and compassion, but with no particular need to get them closer. Just relax, presence of love and compassion with them. And notice the difference between that and when you are really wanting them close. And now take the difficult person, the enemy, the one we chose, we have aversion toward, and release them from that. You can always get this back later if you feel like you need it. But just for now, let that go. And develop an even sensation toward them of love and compassion. It's maybe a little harder than the first one. Just to release that into evenness. Just letting them be as they are, but with your presence and your love and compassion, evenness. And now the one in front, the neutral person. Release them. And in this case, become aware of them, where you're holding them with evenness, not trying to draw them in or push them away, but with an openness, a presence. You're really present with them with love and compassion. You're not ignoring them anymore. You're bringing them into your awareness in an open, loving way. And now experience all three of those beings, the beloved, the enemy, and the unimportant neutral person, with equanimity, with evenness, holding awareness of them, really being present with them, but without trying to manipulate them in any way. Just a relaxed presence with under it a feeling of ease, evenness, and love and compassion. And notice how that feels physically in your body to have released the grasping at the beloved, the aversion to the enemy, and the lack of awareness of the neutral person, into evenness, sameness, not trying to get something from one and not get something from the other, not ignoring everyone else. And now imagine that evenness, that equanimity, spreads out to all those in your immediate environment. Maybe in the house or building where you're sitting. And then into the whole area where you are. If you're in a city, that whole city. If you're outside the city, in the country somewhere, the whole area that you're in. Imagine all those beings, seen and unseen, and generate the feeling of equanimity toward them, evenness. And that equanimity has presence in it too. It's not ignoring, it's present, really present, without any prejudice. Letting go of all your preconceptions. And then that spreads out to all of the country that you're in. I'm in Costa Rica right now, so I spread it out north and south here, imagining I'm including all the beings here. And you do that in whatever country you're in. That's a lot of beings, millions. But your mind is vast. You can include them all. And feel how it feels to have that evenness feeling toward them all. Maybe you have beloveds somewhere in this country. Release them. Maybe you have enemies. Release them. And no doubt you have people that you're just ignorant about. You don't know them. You don't care about them particularly. And include them. And now let this stretch out all around the world. This spinning ball, spinning in space. All the beings in the oceans. All the beings in the North and South poles. And all those billions of people around the world. Imagine that a big blanket of equanimity spreads over them. And all those groups or people that you like, release them. And all the political groups or the countries or people that you don't like, release them. And all the neutral beings. And notice how that feels to have that wide equanimity, vast equanimity. And then let it go out, even off this earth, into space, to whatever life there is in space, in our universe. Limitless equanimity. Sameness, evenness. Notice any sensations in your body around equanimity, being in this, generating this feeling. And notice this in a way that you'll be able to recall it later when you need to generate it. How does it feel in your body? And now we'll dedicate the merit of that meditation on equanimity to the benefit of all beings everywhere. Merit is the positive intentions that we generate, and they accrue energy, so we can give that away. We have that in our karmic bank account. We can give it away. Thank you. Maybe we can open the chat again and people can share a little bit of what their experience was doing that. And in the meantime, I'm going to start to answer some questions. Sent in questions, and so I won't be able probably to answer them all, but I'll do my best to answer some. So one of the questions that I got was, how did your spiritual path inform your role as a woman in our current society? What would that role be? So when I read that question, I went back to the time when I disrobed as a nun and I got pregnant and I had a child, my first child. Because in a way, it was that event that made me suddenly aware that I was a woman. Of course, I had knew that before, but having a baby take over your body and all kinds of things happen to your body that never happened before, and people look at you differently. And then when you have your baby, you don't have any time for yourself anymore. That's over, at least for a while. And so my mind went there. And what I experienced as a mother was a training that was so strong. I hesitate to say it, but I would say it was stronger than my training as a nun. Because we talk about, in Buddhism, we talk about putting the needs of others before yourself, patience, loving kindness. And when you're sleep deprived for months on end and you don't have any time for yourself and you are used to having all your time for yourself, which I was from being a nun, that was an amazing, I guess you could say, test, but also training, because it was real. It wasn't theoretic, me in the cave being patient. It was something that was hard. And so as a woman, that was a training that I had, and I think it's a role that is really underestimated and undervalued, because those who are in power aren't others. And so they define what's important. And that was kind of interesting for me too. I was kind of like, why doesn't anybody talk about this? How hard this is. How much self-sacrifice there is in it. So I think that's something important. And if you're not a mother, you're probably a mother people in some way, or animals, and men have that instinct as well, that caring for others instinct. And I think for me, that is a very strong spiritual path, and something that isn't necessarily talked about. A lot of spirituality that is taught in our culture and really around the world is about getting up and out of the body into a transcendent place, whether it's nirvana or God, or up and out of this dirty, messy thing that we're in. And the tantric teachings of Buddhism really don't do that. It's about the sacredness of here, now, in the body, the sacredness of the body, and the body as a vehicle for enlightenment. And everything's included in that. And that's why sacred sexuality is part of Tantric Buddhism. But the way it happened in the West, that was pulled out, and that suddenly that became Tantra. If you say Tantra to somebody, they're like, sex. Tantra, that's not what Tantra is. It's about embodiment, sacred embodiment, working with the body, the subtle channels, and so on, and including everything in that. Everything is in it. And enlightenment is in it. Enlightenment isn't somewhere else. It's here, in this. And our bodies are a vehicle for that. And so there isn't the denigration of the body or nature. And historically, those religions that were based on transcendence identified that which you were transcending as nature and women, matter, mater in Latin, is what you were overcoming. And therefore, to get to God, you had to get away from women and from matter. And so I think that's really important, because it's had such an impact ecologically. Those religious beliefs have been the beliefs that have caused the rape of the earth, right? Because it's here for us to use. That's the attitude. It's ours. And so those religious values actually have a big impact. And so this question about how does that inform you as a woman in our current society, I think that idea that we are in a sacred vehicle, that the feminine is sacred, it's not a problem, it's not something you're trying to overcome and get rid of and get away from to be spiritual. That being in it, that's the path. At least that's a path. So that for me is my path. And it's not easy. And it's not always clean, I guess you could say. It can be messy. But it's also beautiful. And we need that. We need that understanding. Okay. Let's see. People are writing some things in the chat. I can look. How do I find my own path? Somebody asked that. I was thinking about that question. I got these questions a few days ago. And what I would say is it's like a treasure hunt. You get clues. So you'll hear something about a book or a person or a place, and kind of like a little ka-ching happens. I mean, maybe that happened today about this, about, oh, Lama Tsultrim speaking. Maybe I'll go. That was a clue that you answered, that you took. And so for me, if I look back, I've been actually thinking about this because I'm writing a memoir now about those things that happened when I was a teenager and how they were like clues that I was like, ooh, why does this feel like I want to keep going back to that place? So there was a store actually in Harvard Square in Cambridge, Massachusetts, where I was visiting my grandparents. I would go there sometimes. And it was a Japanese store, second floor, very small. There was a Japanese lady there. And I just loved that store. And I would go. I was like 15, 16. And I didn't have hardly any money, so I didn't really buy a lot. But I just would go and stay in that store and kind of walk around and talk to the lady. We kind of became friends. And I didn't know why I liked it so much there. But that was a clue. So watch those clues in your life. It eventually led me to India, and then I followed the clues to Tibet, to Tibetans, and then I found my path. And so if you have those longings, those like, I keep wanting to go there, or that the name of that person is triggering something for me, or looking at their picture is triggering something for me, then follow that. And then you'll find your treasure at the end. Your treasure hunt. But you have to follow those clues. You can't ignore them. Okay, here's a question. I'm terrified about what might happen after my life when I die. Does hell exist? Or is it a skillful means to push us to practice? So the Tibetan tradition does teach about hell as a real thing. There's the cold hells and there's the hot hells. And it's one of the 6 realms of existence. There's the realm of the gods. There's formless gods and gods with form. There's the realm of the asuras, or the jealous gods, the human realm, the realm of animals, the hungry ghosts, who have necks the size of a pin and huge bellies, and they're always thirsty and hungry, and it even hurts to try to eat. So when you feed the hungry ghosts, you feed them smells, a burning offering you make to them. And then the hell realms. Okay, so I grew up as a Unitarian. I didn't grow up as a Catholic, so I wasn't raised with hell. And I know Catholics only wants to talk about hell. A lot of religions do, and other Christian religions. So I didn't have a strong, I guess, fear of that. And when I began to hear about it, I was like, wow, does this really exist? And if it does, maybe I should be a little more worried than I am right now. And so somehow I couldn't get myself to believe that it existed. And then I eventually, when I came back to the United States and disrobed and became a mother, I began to study with Trungpa Rinpoche, who was a Lama that taught in the early days in the 70s and 80s in the West. And he talked about those 6 realms as psychological states. And that made more sense to me. So the hell realms are based on anger. And there's cold anger and there's hot anger. And anger is very claustrophobic emotion, because when you're caught in anger, it surrounds you. It's pressing. It's like being in a really hot room, right? Not comfortable. Being angry is uncomfortable. Or cold anger, cruelty. That's not a good feeling either. It's really oppressive. And so I could relate to the hell realms in that way. And that's the way I decided to understand them. That we have all those 6 realms as humans. That's how he taught it. And so getting angry is going to take you into the hell realm, basically. However, then, much later, it must have been, I think, probably 2005 or 6, I was with one of my Tibetan teachers from Tibet, actually is in Tibet now, and not in an easy situation at all, by the way. But we were traveling in Italy together, and he was in the front seat. I was in the back seat with Anne Klein, and I think it was my son was driving. And I asked him about the hell realms. Do they really exist, Rinpoche? And he said, oh, yes, they do. And I was like, really? Like, it's actually a place? Like, this is a place? And he said, yes, I've been there. After I was killed by the Chinese, this was his past life, I spent time in the hell realms, liberating beings for about 7 years. It's real. And he didn't say this publicly. It was like a kind of secret thing that he had experienced. So after that, I thought, okay, well, maybe they do exist. I have a lot of trust in him. And so then how do I relate to that if they do exist? Well, try to avoid doing things that might take me there, which would be harming others and anger and what you do when you're angry. So if you think about rebirth and why you would end up in a different realm, it's your mind. What's your mind like right now? Or what's your mind like most of the time? Is your mind peaceful most of the time? Are you hungry all the time? Gabor Mate wrote a book. I think it's called My Life in the Realm of the Hungry Ghosts. Or it's something about hungry ghosts is in the title. And Gabor Mate writes about trauma. And so I'm not sure exactly how he related that to the realm of the hungry ghosts, but I think he related it in that way of, as humans, we can experience a lot of different states. And you see this if you're traveling, if you meet a lot of different people, they may be all in human bodies, but they're not in the same state. It's like they're really in different realms. So I don't think it's helpful to be scared of the hell realms. I think it's more a way to approach it, or at least how I would approach it, is to watch your mind in the present. Watch what you're thinking, what you're doing. How are you treating people? How's your life? Because if you look at what you're doing now, that's your future. And if how you are now you're like, ooh, better clean this up. Clean it up. You can create a lot of good karma still. If you have created negative karma, you can clean that up. Do something different. Change your mind. It's free. You're free. You can change your mind. Okay. Okay, somebody was asking about how to create and maintain a regular meditation practice. How do you move from I want to meditate to I do? I think this is something that every meditator struggles with. And certainly people who are busy, like people who are parents. For years, when my kids were little, I was like, how do I do this? And I couldn't do it. When I had babies, you say, well, get up early. Well, they were up early. We'll do it at night. I was exhausted. So anyway, give yourself a break, cut yourself some slack if you're in a position that is really, really difficult. But remember, you can practice for 5 minutes. And there's studies about mindfulness practice, 5 minutes a day, having a significant impact on depression, anxiety, and other things that we don't want. 5 minutes. So my suggestion is first thing in the morning, and as soon as you get up, before you do anything else is ideal. Sometimes I don't do that. I do a few things before, but it's very easy to let that slip into not practicing. And so I try to do it as soon as I wake up. But if I miss that, then I do it later. It's very rare for me not to practice in a day. Very unusual, almost never. But it hasn't always been like that. I've gone through lots of different things in my lifetime, and also times when I could practice twice a day. The other thing is make it regular. Have it in your calendar. Put it there. You put everything else there, all your other appointments. This is an appointment with yourself. Let's say you do 6 to 7 a.m. meditation. Or meditation, as my grandson says. Put it there, keep it there, respect it, tell everyone if they want an appointment with you at that time or whatever. I can't, that's my practice time. And once you get that settled, then you will feel very strange if you miss it. So that's practicing once a day. If you really can establish a daily practice, your practice will gain power. A Lama said that to me once when I had my kids were young, and I was asking him about practice, and he said, do you practice regularly? And I said, no. And he said, you will never get any power in your practice if you don't practice every day. Pretty simple. And so at that time, my kids went to school. And so once they got on the bus, I started to do it every day because of what he had said. That was kind of the beginning of like, okay, I'm going to really do this. It's not that I didn't practice before, but it wasn't always regular. So there's that. And then the other thing I would suggest is make retreat days where you practice all day. You do an early morning session, a morning session, an afternoon session, and an evening session. And then maybe a retreat weekend, or a retreat week, or a retreat month, or a retreat year. We have someone now at Taramandala who has been in retreat for 5 years. And her practice is pretty amazing now. It's pretty amazing what she writes me that she's experiencing. Think about what we all do with our lives, how much we waste, how much time, how many years. We don't hardly remember what happened that year. Just another year went by. So all of a sudden it's going to be over. So take advantage of it now and set up at least a daily practice. The other thing is, if you are young mothers and you're hearing me and you're like, oh God, I guess I'm a hopeless case, you can meditate while you're nursing, while you're rocking the baby. Those moments when you're not like, I don't know, doing really active things, it's a little quieter, then start your practice then. So that's some hints of how to establish regular practice. Our time is almost up. Okay, there's a question. Why is my mind obsessed with things that don't serve me? How can I cleanse myself of previously received teachings, spiritual practices that have been harmful to me over the years and that are now blocking my creativity? That's kind of two questions. But I think I would answer those in the same way. One is, the answer that I would give is feeding your demons. Because feeding your demons really is an amazing practice to work with things that don't serve you. And there's now 2 scientific studies that have been done on feeding your demons that have shown that there was a 33% difference for people who were doing feeding your demons and people who weren't. There was a control group for anxiety, depression, and addiction. And so that study's about to be, the big study, the bigger one, is about to be published. It's been approved, it's been peer reviewed, and it's about to be published. So what I can say is feeding your demons works. And there is a course that's coming up, an online course in it, and Dreamy can post the link to that. It's really it's an amazing practice. I just did it last week with Alyssa Apple, who's the head of psychiatry at UCSF, and Dan Siegel, who's teaches mindfulness, written many books on it, and so on. Several other people who do a lot of meditation and are exposed to a lot of methods to help people with their emotions. I led them through feeding your demons, and they were like, this is amazing. I want to train in it. I want to bring it into my practice. I want to do a study of it. So that was really amazing for me because, of course, I know that it works, but to give it to show other people who really work with the mind all the time and hear their response to it. I'm just telling you all this because I want you to do it. And so Dream is going to post a link, I think, to that program. And also, I wanted to tell you before we leave each other for now, we're going to do this every week. And I will have other guests as well sometimes. We wanted to kind of get the kinks out, see how this works technologically. I hope it's worked for you. We, this past year, have really made an effort to make the teachings more accessible to people. And this program is part of that. We also have some free Dharma talks coming up by some really incredible women. And Dreamy will post those links. We've also made the in-person retreats at Taramandala, an accessibility entry-level price for people to come. And also our housing, which used to be like if you pay more, you get a better room. Now it's whoever comes first gets the best room. So it's more equitable in that sense financially. So we're doing as much as we can, or maybe we're not doing as much as we can, but we're trying to do as much as possible to address accessibility. And so we will put in links to those talks that are coming up. They will be online. And this talk will also be available after it's over on YouTube and also on Facebook. So I really wish I could see you all, but I can feel you all. And it's been really wonderful to be with you today, beaming out from Costa Rica and doing that meditation together. Group meditation is very powerful. The Tibetans say it's multiplied by the number of people who are doing it at the same time. So if it's 2, it's twice as strong. If it's 3, it's 3 times, and so on. So group practice is powerful and important. And I want to thank you all for doing it with me. I hope it was helpful. There's a quick question I want to answer before I get off. Do you think that anger has to be eradicated? What about injustice? Basically saying that. That's a good point. There can be a manifestation of fierceness without hatred. So we did that equanimity practice, but it doesn't mean that now whatever anybody's doing is fine. You can still be an activist and you can still work against injustice, but be careful that you don't get caught by hatred. You maybe know the story from the Dalai Lama where somebody that had been close to him in Tibet escaped, had been in prison in China, came to him, and His Holiness said to him, "Were you ever in danger?" And he said, "Yes, I was in danger a few times." And His Holiness said, "When?" And he said, "When I was being tortured, there were moments when I was in danger of losing my compassion for the Chinese people who were torturing me." That was his definition of being in danger, because he considered bodhicitta, that loving intention, to be so precious that to lose it means that you have gone into a dangerous situation. So you can work actively, you can protest, you can have strong beliefs, but hatred means that there's a grasping and a desire to harm, to hurt. Then you lose something. You're in danger if that happens. But you can manifest fierceness. That's what my whole last book is about, Wisdom Rising. It's about the fierce feminine and how important it is. So on that note, I think we'll end. There may be more questions, and I'll look at these later. And if there's things that I think I should address from this week, next week I will. And I hope that you enjoyed this. Give us your feedback. Let us know how this went for you. We're using new software, doing this dual thing with YouTube and Facebook. I hope that worked and that the Wi-Fi here was strong enough for you. And if not, I hope you still get something out of it. And I want to thank everyone at Taramandala who supported this, Ben and Dreame and Constance, who worked really hard getting all this ready. to be smooth. Thank them and all of you for your participation. Let's do a short meditation dedicating the merit of this time together, this 1 hour together. Any merit that we have gained, may it benefit all beings everywhere. Thank you. Lots of love, everyone.
Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri